There's someone who's trying to do the opposite. There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Yeah, Donald Trump. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. And we won't. We won't. I am proud of the response of Canadians who are making their voices heard and their wallets felt. I am grateful for how our provinces are stepping up to the fight, because when we are united, we are Canada strong. The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
Meanwhile,
well, things change, don't they? Ontario Premier Doug Ford, up in Canada, has decided he's not going to tax the United States residents and electrical users 25%. He had a conversation with our Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and they both decided it would be in the best interest of both countries not for Ford to do that.
Already Canada, and I respect very much. As you know, there's a very strong man in Canada who said he was going to charge a surcharge or a tariff on electricity coming into our country. He has called and he said he's not going to do that. Okay, he's not going to do that. And it would have been a very bad thing if he did, and he's not going to do that, so I respect that. But we were just informed that he's not going to do that.
Boy, 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 boy. So we got to talk about Canada, a country that has become extremely Trump deranged. Okay, they now have a new Trump deranged prime minister by the name of Mark Carney. He has officially replaced Justin Trudeau as the Liberals put in a last-ditch effort to save their party before they have an election. And it's at the point now where, again, the Canadians are desperate. They're desperate to try to appear strong in the face of these tariffs from President Trump, which, you know, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if I buy into the administration's explanation in regards to why they're putting the tariffs on Canada. I don't think it's just about fentanyl crossing the border. I think it's about working out better trade agreements, okay? Realizing that, hey, Canada, they are tariffing us, okay? They are not living up to their obligations, and we need to make sure they live up to their obligations, and they're part of the agreement, the trade agreement that we negotiated under President Trump, okay? I also think that it's about national security. I think that it's about a lot of things, fentanyl just being one of many things that it is about. But regardless, what people got to understand is that what President Trump is doing with these tariffs is not just him putting them on and taking them off and doing it in a way that is very careless. Okay. I believe that the moves that President Trump is making along with his economic advisors are very calculated. Okay. And smart investors are picking up on this. Okay. As Ron Barron went to CNBC to basically say the same thing that I said about why we're seeing some of the volatility in the market and the economy with these tariffs from President Trump, because a lot of this is a part of President Trump's attempt to bring down inflation and, again, to also work out better trade deals. Take a look.
Ready me.
Let me ask you very quickly right now how you're feeling about the overall markets. You're a value investor. When stocks prices come down, sometimes value investors get pretty excited. How do you feel about things?
Well, it makes people very unsettled right now, all the things that are happening so quickly. I think they're intentional. I think that the government, you got Musk, incredibly consequential person, advising the president. And I think that all the things they say that make the market go up or down, you shouldn't think that those are by miscommunication or error. They're all intentional.
Not intentional to drive the stock market down, to get to a different place for the economy.
Well, everything. Yeah. I think they might even be intentional to try to slow down the economy, get rid of inflation. First-term president, the first thing you do is try to do things that are going to be unattractive to your constituents, or, if you're running for election. But you do it now, get it out of the way, and then a year and a half from now, then things will look better. A year from now, things will look better. But stock prices, I've been saying for a little while now, I can't believe how cheap they are. This are the things that we're looking at.
So you're on a buying spree right now?
I didn't say I was in a buying spree. I just said I can't believe how cheap things. I own a lot of things.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? The smart money kind of understands what's going on right now, okay? That President Trump is not just doing this because he's a madman, he's erratic, he doesn't understand economics, et cetera, which is all the things that the mainstream liberal media claim. No, he's doing this for various reasons, okay? It seems as if tariffs are a tool to accomplish multiple things, okay? To try to work out better trade agreements, but also at the same time, it spooks the market, a market that is extremely overvalued, into going into safer assets that hopefully will help drive down inflation. I think that is what President Trump is trying to do. And it seems as if the tariffs are a good tool to accomplish a lot of these things. Okay. So that being said, Canada is not taking this very well. Okay. Premier Doug Ford from Ontario, he came out and basically threatened to slap a surcharge on electricity coming into the United States of America from Canada, mainly affecting states on the border with Canada, and also went as far as to basically threaten to shut off the electricity altogether. And let's just say that President Trump did not like that very much. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
President Donald Trump announced he will double planned tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum from 25% to 50%. He said those tariffs will take effect Wednesday. The doubling down is in retaliation to Canada's 25% surcharge on electricity exports.
Until these tariffs are off the table, until the threat of tariffs is gone for good, Ontario will not relent.
Ontario announced the retaliatory electricity charge on Monday. Premier Doug Ford says he's adding a 25% surcharge to electricity exports to Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. The electricity Ontario sends powers 1.5 million American homes.
This surcharge will cost families and businesses in these states up to $400,000 each and every single day. On an average, this will add around $100 per month to the bills of hardworking Americans.
Well, on top of doubling tariffs on steel and aluminum in response, Trump said on Truth Social he'll be declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area. This will allow the U.S. to quickly do what has to be done to alleviate this abusive threat from Canada.
If the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely. Believe me when I say I do not want to do this.
Wow. Wow. This guy is threatening to shut off the electricity completely. Okay. This man is a little too big for his britches. He doesn't understand that he's dealing with the most powerful country in the world. Okay. With a quote unquote madman. Okay. As a leader. And yeah, this just was not a good move, to be honest with you.
I feel terrible for the American people because it's not the American people who started this trade war. It's one person who's responsible. That's President Trump.
In response, Trump said, "Can you imagine Canada stooping so low as to use electricity that so affects the life of innocent people as a bargaining chip and threat? They will pay a financial price for this so big that it will be read about in history books for many years to come." Wall Street continued its decline Tuesday as Canada and the U.S. escalated this trade fight. On Monday, the Nasdaq posted its worst day since 2022 after the president declined to rule out the possibility of a recession. He said what he's doing with trade takes time.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time.
On Tuesday, Trump also took aim at Canada's import tariffs on U.S. dairy products that exceed 200%. The Canadian policy charges such tariffs if imports go above pre-negotiated amount of tariff-free dairy sales set by the USMCA. The International Dairy Foods Association says these tariffs have not been charged. Frustratingly, the U.S. has never gotten close to exceeding our USMCA quotas because Canada has erected various protectionist measures that fly in the face of their trade obligations made under USMCA.
AKA Canada's not living up to their obligations, right? That we agreed upon in the last trade agreement, which is something you'll never hear from the mainstream liberal media, right? They're going to talk about how mean it is for President Trump to put tariffs on our friends, Canada. It's so mean, right? The Americans are so terrible to the Canadians. But yet, Canada, they're supposed to allow U.S. dairy exporters to have access to their market, but they're not, okay? They're actually using quotas in order to stop the U.S. from having access to their market. They're not living up to their end of the bargain, right? And see, this is why I'm not boohoo-whining and crying about the tariffs on Canada, and I'm not one of these people that's pretending as if, oh, Canada has been nothing but good to us. It's not the case, right? It's not the case. And this is something that we've been fighting about for a while, okay? So ultimately, at the end of the day, when it comes to Canada, I think the goal for President Trump here is to make Canada submit, which eventually they will, right? They're going to submit. But I think it sends a message to China, the EU, other places around the globe where we want to work out more trade agreements or trade agreements that are better for the American people, that we're serious, okay? And that we will basically destroy Canada, okay? Because that's how serious we are, right? So Canada is being used as an example that nobody's off limits, right? That's essentially what it looks like to me.
Trump said his doubling of tariffs on steel and aluminum to 50% is just the start if Canada continues to retaliate against the U.S. If other egregious long-time tariffs are not likewise dropped by Canada, I will substantially increase on April 2nd the tariffs on cars coming into the U.S., which will essentially permanently shut down the automobile manufacturing business in Canada. Those cars can easily be made in the USA, he wrote. Share prices for the big three automakers, Ford, GM, and Stellantis, all fell during trading Tuesday. For Straight Arrow News, I'm Simone Del Rosario. To stay on top of the wrap.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Now, unsurprisingly, Doug Ford, who was supposed to be so big and bad, right? We're going to cut off the electricity to the United States, right? He has now come out and folded after President Trump threatened to double the tariffs on Canada and the steel industry. Take a look.
Get some of those answers now. Von Hilliard for us here in Washington. Let's turn to Canada. Joining me now is Doug Ford. He is the Premier of Ontario. Mr. Premier, we appreciate you again making time for us here on Meet the Press Now. Obviously, Von just noted it, and we've been reporting in the last several minutes here that you announced that you're lifting that 25% surcharge on electricity exports after talking with the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick. Take us inside that conversation, if you will, just a little bit. What assurances did you get from Washington before you made this decision to hold off on these surcharges?
Well, first of all, Aaron, thank you so much for having me on. I start every interview with saying how much we love Americans, and I know Americans love Canadians. We have to stop the bleeding. Secretary Lutnick reached out to me, put an olive branch out to sit down and have a discussion to move the USMCA deal forward and not wait till April the 2nd. We have to make sure we protect both countries. And as we're duking it out back and forth, China's laughing. They're building an arsenal of critical minerals. And we have to work together. We're the two greatest nations in the world. Let's build that AMCAN fortress. And as for the aluminum and steel, 16% of the aluminum that the U.S. makes is produced in the U.S. The rest, vast majority of it, comes from Quebec, Canada, along with steel. But let's work together. Cooler heads have to prevail here, or we'll decimate both economies. And we're seeing it over the last few days.
Understood. So in your conversation then, obviously you've agreed to not implement the surcharge. Did the Commerce Secretary offer you anything in exchange? Was there an understanding that the U.S. would be making a concession as well?
Well, they made the concession of dropping the additional 25%. They had it up to 50% on the steel and aluminum, and a meeting. We need to sit down at the table. We need to move forward this USMCA deal as soon as possible. Every single day that goes by, we see the market down over $4 trillion. Inflation's happening. Threats of assembly plants in the auto sector closing down on both sides of the border. Manufacturing, consumer confidence is down. We need to sit down, get this done. We're the largest customer for the U.S. We love the American people, and I do. I spent 20 years of my life there, and I just want to make a deal that's a fair deal for both countries. And let's unite, and let's stick together.
So if I understood you correctly, there will still be a 25% tariff enacted on Canadian steel and aluminum tomorrow. Are you comfortable with that? Are you prepared to reinstate your surcharges potentially down the road?
Well, we have $30 billion of tariffs against the U.S. I can't stand tariffs. Let's work things out. Let's sit down. Let's make both countries prosperous and the greatest two countries in the world. And that's what we need to do. Rather than arguing back and forth, let's sit down and move forward on this deal. We're the two most important allies in the world. And rather than fighting, we need to sit down and move forward and be united for the rest of the world to see.
This dude is groveling. He's groveling. I can't believe this dude went on national television and tried to pretend as if President Trump was making concessions, right? President Trump was not making any concessions because this man threatened to shut off the electricity, right? To cut off the electricity. And he threatened the surcharge as well, too. He threatened that in response to the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, okay, from President Trump. And after that, President Trump retaliated and said, you know what, I'm going to up it another 25%. And this man folded, right? He pretends as if President Trump made a concession by taking away the additional 25%. No, that's not a concession because that was being slapped on Canada because of your retaliation to our original tariffs, okay? So President Trump is not making any concessions. But notice what he's talking about here. He claims that, well, I hate tariffs. Well, if you hate tariffs, then stop tariffing us, right? Remove your tariffs against us since you hate tariffs so much. But again, that's how it works. That's how these people think. They think it's okay to tariff us to make it harder for U.S. producers to do business in their country. They think that's fine. But to make it harder for them to do business in our country, oh, that's terrible. You must hate Canada, right? You're such a bad person. And again, the worst part about this is that the American media and the left side of the political aisle, the Democrats and liberals, they are cheering against America. When you have a country like Canada that is screwing us over when it comes to our dairy farmers, okay, our industry, when they're screwing us over, they're not living up to their obligations. The media sides with Canada. They side with the other country. They don't side with the president who's trying to make Canada live up to their obligations, because I knew that this was about the whole time, right? The fentanyl stuff, I think they say that, okay, as a way to kind of, justify why they're doing it. And I'm not saying it's not a part of it, but I'm telling you, this is about trade, right? This is 100% about, hey, we want to make Canada bend to our will when it comes to trade because they're screwing us over. And then after that, we're going to go to Europe. We're going to go to China, and they're going to be next, right? They're going to be next. That's exactly what's happening, okay? Canada is being used. Canada is being made an example out of, and it's working. It's working. Everything that the president is doing is working. It just takes patience. And that's what the president is saying. Say, listen, we're going through a transition period. Yeah, it's going to be a little bump and grind here and there. But at the end of the day, if President Trump gets a better trade deal from Canada, if Canada actually now has to start living up to their promises, okay, that's going to help out America. That's going to be good for us. Okay, a little market volatility here and there. So what? Right? So what? But if we have more access to foreign markets, that helps the American people. That creates jobs. That's better for us. That's a win. But see, our politicians for so long have just bent over to the world and just did everything that they want us to do. And now all of a sudden they're upset. They're mad because we're not bending over anymore. We're not just taking it up the butt, right? We're fighting back. We're fighting back. And they don't like that. They don't like a strong America, right? It hurts, right? It hurts to have a strong America. And that's what you're seeing here. That's what you're seeing. So, it's just hilarious to me to watch Canada fold like a wet paper bag. They didn't think that the tariffs were real. Hey, turns out that the tariffs were real, that we tried to negotiate. We tried to come to the table, but y'all didn't want to come to the table. So then we had to slap on the tariffs. You tried to retaliate, and we said, you know what? We're going to up it again. Okay, we're going to up it again. And now they want to come to the table. Now, let's renegotiate the agreement. Let's get rid of the tariffs. I hate tariffs. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Right? Watch how the mainstream media covers this. They're never going to give President Trump credit. They're never going to give him credit, right? When President Trump defeats inflation and when we're in a much better place in this country, a year from now, going into the midterms, the liberal media will never, ever, ever give the president credit, okay, for what he's doing to turn around Joe Biden's economy, right? Yes, there's a little bit of pain, there's a little bit of volatility, but I see the vision, right? I see the end goal here from the president, and it's becoming clear that he knows what he's doing, that this is not the president being erratic. This is him sending a message, and this is him being a businessman, right? Which is what I love the most about this administration. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.